going on with our live stream. I'm going to turn it over to David McDermott in Dublin. So, David, why don't you take it away, buddy?
Hello, here we are. This is the Dublin Blender user group. Can you hear us? Can you get this loud and clear?
We can hear you loud and clear. You sound great.
Thank you. So we are actually transmitting live from our evil base under Dublin, which is also known as Dogpatch Labs. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Dogpatch Labs here in Dublin for hosting us for the event. But I'm really excited because I'll jump back in the camera here. I'm really excited. I'm so happy that we got such a wonderful group of people to show up for the first event, which was done at a very short notice. And we're very excited about doing our little presentation today for the World Blender Meetup Day. And thanks a lot to Theory for organizing the whole event. And I suppose we'll get going. So the first presentation is I'm going to give a short talk about introducing Blender. Because it's our first ever meeting, the idea is I'm going to go through the features of Blender for the beginner, and also hopefully introduce some artwork as well that people are creating all around the world with Blender. And then after that, we have David Williams from Pulse College, and he's going to give a talk about Blender and computer games as well. So without any more delay, I'll switch from the camera and I'll go over to the computer here, and we will start transmitting the presentation. Oh no, I can't see it. Okay. What can you do in Blender? Okay, so the idea of this talk is I just want to run through 35 of the most amazing features that we have in Blender. I've worked with various packages through my career, and I've been using Blender since I became a freelance artist. And more often than not, I found that like, oh, it'd be really nice if Blender could do this. And I found out, you know what, it already can do it. Because there's literally packed full of features. So hopefully, for the people who are experienced here, I hope that you'll see something, maybe something new you haven't seen before. So number one, the most obvious, polygonal modeling. Blender has a beautifully developed and mature suite of polygonal modeling tools, and then, which is the bread and butter of the package. And then number two, NURBS modeling. There's a very nice tutorial. I can't, do I hide this in here? Sorry, I'm just going to pause that for a second. How can I get rid of this? There we go. Okay, so that's better. Okay, so this is a tutorial by Peter Drakulik. Definitely check out his channel. He's got some nice tutorials. And the NURBS modeling is an alternative way of modeling, and using a small number of control points, you can get very nice smooth surfaces. Blender also has an amazing sculpting tool. And there's several artists working using the sculpting tool, really some very exceptional ones, like Daniel F. R. Gordillo. He has a brilliant channel, definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested in sculpting. You see here at ultra high speed, he's sculpting a very detailed sculpture of the Predator. And there's some really just exceptional artists working with the tools. So here's another one, Kafir Merlau. I really apologize if I screwed up his name there, but he's just like stunning sculptures that he's created. And I think one thing that's really interesting as well, he renders it with the OpenGL render, I believe. So he's getting fantastic results using Blender. So just another example of the fantastic qualities possible with Blender. And Doris Spivey, I also maybe mispronounced that. She's a wonderfully talented sculptor and artist using Blender. Okay, on to number four, compositing. So you can composite your rendered 2D images and material, add effects, do all sorts of color correction and adjustments. So the compositing tool allows you to combine all the artwork and add effects. So here's an example. This is actually from a tutorial by Andrew Price, who has a training site, Blender Guru, and I definitely recommend those tutorials as well. He's got a wonderful tutorials available for free on the site. And I've used Blender Compositor myself many times in different projects for animation and for still illustration as well. Number 5, yes, there's a full-blown video editor in Blender, if that wasn't enough. A lot of people might not even realize that that's in there, but they might think, oh yeah, it's just for 3D or whatever, but you can actually edit your video. It doesn't have to be limited to 3D renders or animation like that. So this example is by Paul Kagei. Again, sorry if I mispronounced that, but he's got a channel as well. There's a very nice tutorial on how to use the video editor, the VLC. And yeah, it's great. Again, you can output in a whole load of different formats: QuickTime, XVID, all different types of formats, or output as RAW. So Blender really just shows that Blender is a content creation suite. It's a whole collection of tools that let you make whatever you want to. Like for another example, this is absolutely beautiful cartoon style artwork. You can actually paint directly onto your models with the 3D texture paint tool. And in this example, XRG81, which I think is one of the robots out of Star Wars. No, I don't know. That's the channel name on YouTube. But he's created like a beautiful cartoon style image here. But you can actually use image textures and you can put them directly onto the model, so you can do a photorealistic look as well. So there's a variety of things you can do with it there. And then 2D painting. Okay, the UV image editor is where you would edit your images for 2D. But you can actually paint in the 2D UV image editor. And CDMJ from Theory Animation is showing off his ridiculous talent by actually completely drawing a picture from scratch in Blender, which I think is just ridiculously talented there. But it's great fun. It just shows that the tools are so versatile that you can really do so much more than you would expect. And literally, you could create your whole project start to finish just inside Blender, not open any other piece of software. So it's just showing again. And then the Blender Foundation, this is camera tracking. So Blender also has camera tracking in, so you can take video footage and you can track the position of objects, and then you can recreate the camera movements inside the scene, and that allows you to composite in your 3D models for visual effects and stuff like that. So there's just, it's again, another fantastic tool that's in Blender, and here's an example here. This is from the Blender Foundation training DVD, Track and Match, I think it is. I would definitely recommend any of the training materials you can get on the Blender website or in the cloud. Well worth it, they're fantastic. And then the next one is the grease pencil. Now, I think this is probably one of the less used or less understood kind of tools. You can use it just to mark up your model and put these lines, so you can think of it as like a tailor's chalk or something like that. But you can also draw lines in 3D in the scene. So, for example, in Cosmos Laundromat, they created a 3D storyboard, or Daniel and Lara here has actually created full traditional animation using the grease pencil tool, which is just like, wow, it's amazing stuff, you know. So like, it just shows with a bit of talent some of the amazing things that can be created here with the tools again. And I don't think it's that widely used. Okay, Cycles. Cycle is the latest, up-to-date render engine in Blender, and it's actually using. Well, you don't have to understand the technical side. All you need to know is it looks amazing. Okay, it's just, you can create. It's got a beautiful set of materials, all different things that you can just make your models look fantastic. And this is from a tutorial by Gleb Alexandrov. He's got a full series called the Open Lighting Encyclopedia, I think it is. And definitely look up Gleb Alexandrov and Creative Shrimp if you're interested in learning more about the lighting system of Blender and the effects. He's got a wonderful, entertaining style, and yeah, definitely recommend this tutorial. It's good fun. Now, this is another thing as well. OpenGL, the Blender Institute in their recent project, actually produced the whole film. They rendered the whole thing in OpenGL, as far as I understand, which is normally used for previews and stuff, but it just goes to show that it's a tool that if you think about things differently, you can achieve amazing things. And I would also say the same for there's another, the Blender internal render, is the original renderer that was developed in Blender. And it's actually really useful. Sometimes you might want to render elements that don't need complicated lighting, or maybe just 2D elements for an effect or for masking or something like that. And the internal render can render at a lightning speed. Okay, NPR rendering. There is a non-photorealistic rendering system in Blender called Freestyle. And this is an example from Tomo Asks. We don't know what his actual name is, but the YouTube channel is Tomo Asks. And he's recreated the introduction to, I believe it's Card Captors something or other. And it's just unbelievable. Look at it. I mean, the top left there is the original 2D animation. And then the bottom right is the wireframe and how he recreated it. And then the top right is his rendered version. And it's almost perfect what he's created. It's incredible. So just, and as well as that, the NPR rendering system can be used for lots of different looks. It doesn't have to be anime style. It can be lots of different kind of effects. Another tool that's really great is Dynamic Paint. Daniel Kreuter here has a YouTube channel, and he's done a whole lot of ultra short, really easy to understand tutorials on different tools in Blender, so I definitely suggest that as well. Oh yeah, and for everybody listening and watching, don't worry, I know I'm flying through it super fast. I'm going to put all the links to all the tutorials on my website, so Giant Oak Studios, I'll put up a blog post, and you'll be able to link to all these tutorials. So don't try and memorize it now, your brain might explode. Okay, so Dynamic Paint, that's, as I said, one object can write on another or affect another. Fluid simulation, you can also simulate fluids in Blender. And you can see from this example here, this is by Shush Productions on YouTube there. And it's beautiful for handling small scale simulations. So this would be something like, I don't know, the size of a bathtub or something. But it can also handle, as you're going to see in a second, ridiculously large simulations. And this is by Mike Pan, who will also be presenting today on the live stream later on. So everyone check out his presentation. But it's just, wow, look at that. I think he's got a supercomputer somewhere. But, and here's another example from Andrew Price, where he's used the Fluid Sim for illustrations, and that's part of a tutorial on his site as well. So, Smoke Sim, that's another one of the simulations in Blender. And just look at the jaw-dropping results that Blender Diplom has created. So you can go and check their site out if you want more information on that. But yeah, it's just really luscious effects there. So they've simulated smoke, but also you can get like a fire effect as well using the smoke simulator. So again, yet another tool that's packed in to Blender, one of the many. But yet, wait, there's more. Yes, Daniel Kreuter has also done one of his wonderful, short, no-nonsense tutorials on all the settings for the Smoke Sim. And look at that gorgeous hair. Recently, the Blender Institute has been developing the hair sim to be even more useful. And this is an example from CG Cookie. I think they have one of the most in-depth tutorials on hair in Blender. I mean, it's gorgeous, the fact that they've managed to get there. But yes, that's another tool in Blender. And there's the example from their site. So yeah, again, yet another tool in there that's not everyone uses straight out of the box. You know, a lot of people might just using simple modeling tools in there. And probably going to hop on to the next one now. Yes, number 17, Cloth Sim. This is from CG Masters by Lee Salvamini, and they have some great tutorials there. So yeah, you can simulate cloth and materials, and you can use it for all sorts of things. So in this example, he's actually simulating a piece of clothing and stitching it together. But you can use it for things that you might not initially imagine. Like, for example, you can have it as part of your rig if you want a character with like a tail or something that's hanging and dangling. You can create a cloth simulation, and then you can constrain bones to it and things like that to get all sorts of effects with it. Here's the Cloth Sim again, another lovely little short tutorial by Daniel Kreuter. And physics. You can do physics simulations in Blender too. You can have a massive game of Jenga and simulate all sorts of things as well. So again, that's another one of the many tools. So now, I think from now on, we're going to start speeding up because we're going to try and get through them in a timely manner. This is particles. We have, this is a combination of camera tracking and particle effect, and it's by Blaze Radar on YouTube. So you can see it's got a really striking and unusual effect there. Just shows what you can achieve with imagination. And if you're interested in learning about particles, I would recommend Sardi Pax. Again, an unusual name on YouTube. He's got a channel there, and he shows you how to use particles. And also, you can use particles for things like distributing objects in a scene. So each one of these little dots you can replace with a model if you wanted to do perhaps foliage in a large landscape or something like that. Okay, number 20, GPU rendering. Cycles has GPU rendering, which is great. So it means that you can speed up your renders by stacking a load of graphics cards in the machine, if money is no object. This example here is by Mike Pan. It's been adopted as the GPU benchmark. Animation toolset. Blender has a fantastic animation toolset. It's got a dope sheet, it's got a graph editor, and then it has the non-linear editor where you can record your animations into clips and store them as pose libraries, and you can do lots of different things there. So it's a lovely, mature animation system that's available to you there. And as well as that, I just wanted to say everything I'm covering here is free or in Blender as standard. Also, I've covered a plugin. So for example, Rigify is an automatic rigging plugin for Blender that lets you build humanoid rigs, and it was created by Nathan Vagal, I believe, and also developed by Pitchy Boy Studio with a more advanced face rig. And just in minutes, you can rig a humanoid character using the proxy objects and then exporting it like this. And it's great. It's a fantastic basic rig to get you going straight away. And it's a plugin, so it's free. It's in software. You just turn it on. Okay. Yeah. So as I was saying, everything I'm showing here is either free or has a free version. So multi-platform. That's another thing that's really fantastic about Blender. I mean, if you know that if you've got a copy of Blender, you can sit down at any computer, basically use it. And then normal maps, you can render normal maps for your object. So taking a more complex object and compiling it onto a lower resolution object to give the same effect or give the same look in the scene. Color correction. This is another one by Gleb Alexandrov. There's a very interesting color correction tool in Blender, and it also lets you simulate film types. So if you're from a film background and you're trying to get different, you're trying to match a look with a particular type of film stock, it has a great load of presets in there, which is very interesting. Yeah, there's one thing you might not automatically think of, but audio editing. Yes, you can audio edit in Blender in the video sequence editor. You can change the volume of your different clips and everything like that, and then you can compile them into a single soundtrack. So if you use the mix down option, you can use that to edit together. So file conversion, something you wouldn't think about too much, but there is a ton of different file types that you can import and export from Blender. So it's just, I found it very useful. It means you can accept different files of many different kinds. And you can simulate oceans, of course, because why not? And this is from Oliver Vilar from Spain, and he will be also appearing on the live stream later on to give a tutorial, hopefully at a bit more relaxed pace than myself. But yeah, so it's a lovely simulator. And yes, you can also make games in Blender. There is an interaction engine and a whole system to create games as well. And this is from the Yo Frankie project, which was created in Blender. And then onto some of the plugins, which we're doing the countdown to the very end here. The sapling generator, which is a plugin you can find in preferences. You can generate procedurally trees of all sorts of different kinds, which is great for architectural visualization. Or Archimesh, which I think this is another fantastic plugin, which is available for free. Just drawing with the grease pencil, you can automatically create geometry, and it has a lot of tools to help you with architecture. Another plugin that's really great is the Ivy generator. So again, you can, just like the sapling tree generator, you can procedurally create an Ivy model to add your scenes. And we're onto the ridiculous now. This is such a specialized tool, but I just added it in. You can generate books. Okay, so it's not going to help you if you're stuck on your first novel, but it will help you if you're doing architectural visualizations and you need to add in something to the shelf quickly. And then RenderMan. Yes, there's a free version of RenderMan, Pixar's rendering tool, available that you can use for Blender, and a whole load of other commercial engines too. But now, finally, the most important feature of them all, freedom. I've worked with a load of different packages in the past, and I found that I have work that I've done from years back, but I just can't access it anymore because I don't have a license for the piece of software I was working on. Or even worse, imagine if the company that makes your software decided to discontinue it. You can never access your work again. So I think this is the most important feature in Blender. The Blender Institute has given us all a fantastic gift. We are free to create whatever we want, and there is no tax on your creativity. You can literally make whatever you want, and you are guaranteed any point in the future you're going to be able to access and work with what you have created. So with that, I'd like to finish off. I'd say a big thank you to the Blender Institute, and thank you very much to everyone watching.
We're going to need a list of all of these, including the book generator. That's actually pretty cool.
It is, yeah. I mean, again, Blender just knocks me down literally, practically every single time I've gone, oh, it'd be great if Blender could do this. Someone says, well, actually it does do that. You know, you just didn't know it. So hats off to the devs and to all the community for the amazing tools that added in. Okay, our next speaker is going to be David Williams. Would you like to come up here? I'll hand over to him. So there we go. Thank you very much.
I'm not even sure how to follow that because David just told me every cool thing you can do in Blender ever.
So my name is David Williams. As I said, I am the head of games and animation out in post-college. Throughout many years, I have been part of the gaming community in one form or another through academic research or physical involvement with games companies or even game startups. And what I wanted to talk to you today about is the games industry. A bit more of an industry-based talk. I want to talk about, Dave has shown you what we can do with Blender. I kind of want to talk about why we should do things with Blender and how we should do things with Blender. So the future of the games industry, and I can tell you in advance, I don't have too much to take you through today. I'm not going to bore you to death, and I'll try and make it as interesting as possible. But I really want to talk about the future of Blender in relation to the games industry. And as I said, my background is in games, so what we've done is we focus on 3D adventure games, so your standard high detail horror stories that people have created. We've done the more cartoon pop style, merging the animation techniques of our animators and the game styles of our gamers to make console-based platformers and adventure games, or the more traditional high detail animations. We have the tools to do all this. What do we do with these tools? Why do we use them? So let's talk a little bit about games development in general. So firstly, I'm going to ask, how many of you here are actual game developers or have tried to make a game? It's about half the room, okay? For the other half, have you considered making games? No?
No, I'd be more interested in kind of participate in it, but I wouldn't have the interest to create like the whole curriculum.
And that's fine. And what we're finding more and more is this idea of what we refer to as a T-shaped model in industry, that no one specifically makes a game. The day of the individual game developer making a game by themselves and throwing it out to the world is long gone. It doesn't happen. Everyone's part of a team. Everyone has a specialist skill set that they add. They bring specialists in to work with them. They have people help. Even in small teams of 3 or 4, but nobody does it by themselves anymore unless they're an absolute madman. I'm looking
I'm like,
Ireland is in the middle of a digital renaissance regards the gaming industry at the moment. We have just started. Thankfully, most to the brave independent scene that's out there. The individual users who have made their games, done their startup. It has encouraged and brought mass industry across into Ireland right now. The independent studios include things like Larian and Digit and, you know, even Riot. Riot, who do League of Legends, one of the biggest selling games in the world. They're still classified as independent. There's no difference between what they're doing and a small team of 3 or 4. And that's encouraged mass companies from abroad to now bring the likes of Olivier Masclef, who works at Cyanide Studios, the Romeros. They're all moving to Ireland now because they can see the passion that's being brought forward by this, in this industry. This industry is one of the biggest industries in the world now. Game development was over 60 billion last year. It's bigger than TV and film combined. That's massive, that's huge. And we are right at the center of it and growing, which is a fantastic opportunity. So, what's this mean to Blender? So me, Blender, I got into it. I love art, I love low poly. Low poly is our thing. It's the most important thing in games when we're looking at 3D modeling. Me being the man-child I am, I specifically got into it so I could make toys for myself, red 3D printed versions of toys, or low poly characters that I can control. Didn't start this way. Some of you said you're new here. Starting at the beginning, I can tell you, this is a low poly transformer I made. It's about 100 polys for Optimus Prime's head. I actually started with cups. So many cups. They're a great way to learn. And do you know what? When you get good at one cup, and this thing's ridiculous, it was like 2,900 polys or something for a cup. Just mental. And this is how I started. When I got good at one cup,
just a quick heads up. I don't think we actually see the screen. We still see 35 Freedom and Braveheart here.
No.
William Wallace.
no.
Okay. I think you're sharing only VLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that now?
Okay, well, we can see everybody now, yeah.
How's that?
There
Can
we
see?
go, we see cups.
Okay, brilliant.
Yes, excellent.
Sorry, apologies.
No worries.
It's all right. Nobody really gets that excited about cups. But once we've made lots of cups, then if you're lucky, you get to make a table with cups. And as Dave showed you earlier, you might be lucky enough that you get to use a cloth simulation and throw it on the side. And you expand and you grow. So for those of you that have started, this is how you will begin. It's not the most exciting. It seems tedious at times, but it's also we can get to building the things that we want to, the exciting models, the fun models that we can show off and play with and make our own toys and games and whatever we do. So what's that mean for us as gamers? So as we said, gamers, it's low poly. So I'm going to ask you a very serious question that may not make me popular today. The hard question is, why should game devs use Blender? That's a difficult question to ask. With so many tools and resources out there, an industry that's already established, what does Blender offer us that we're not already using in these game companies? As we said, we're now a $60 billion industry. We're leading it over in Ireland at the moment. We have fantastic opportunities. What's Blender doing? And if look, the constant comparison that people throw up is look at the difference in detail. If you compare 3D Max's shading system into a Blender cycle, the realism, you can see the difference in realism. What I propose to you is realism is not always the most important thing. We don't always need that level of quality, but as an educator, I can tell you it's not sexy enough for people to jump on board. We need to see how do we pitch this idea to people. Would you care to hazard a guess? Every year I deal with hundreds of students looking to do games and animation. I have been teaching for many, many years. I have been doing 3D modeling for longer than I care to admit. Would you care to hazard a guess to how many students walk in my door excited every year or any year and ask, I really want to do Blender? Really small. I could tell you it's, at the moment, a big fat 0.
I didn't want to say 0, but I kind of.
I know, it sounds really harsh, but it's not. We have to be realistic here. It sounds harsh, but at the moment it's a 0. And we need to change that, because there's no reason it should be 0. The fact of the matter is, they walk in and they go, 3D Studio Max is amazing, look at what it does, look at all the games I do. Oh, I can sculpt in ZBrush, look, it's amazing. Have you ever tried to use ZBrush? It is the most unfriendly user interface ever. If you haven't used it, don't. You're better off. Just use the sculpting in Blender, you'll feel better about yourself. We don't always need, certain games need this high level of detail, and the render will matter, but for most of us, it doesn't. There's good quality stuff, and what Blender's offering is so much more than that. It is the integration. It's exactly what was just told to you. It is the multiple file types. It is having everything accessible. Blender's even with their own game engine now that they're looking at in further iterations that they're going to tie in, and this is the big thing. The more tie-in, the more communication, the more seamless it should be, and the other tools don't offer that. They have cross-platform, and yes, you can share software between multiple aspects, but you need to pull it out of one program to put it in another. Blender is allowing us to create fully developed worlds, environments, animations, characters, all in one seamless environment, whilst giving us the option to say, oh, you're working with somebody who uses 3D Max? Go export it as an STL or OBJ. An STL is an STL no matter what program you load it in. It doesn't matter what file format. And that's what we should be thinking like. And that's what we need to do. We need to start thinking like that. It's the open source way. I am a big fan of open source. Open source is a big challenge for a lot of people. But the advantages to it is it's community driven. So that means, like the Blender Institute, they listen to us, their community, or they work with us. If we have an idea or create something, they are happy to take it on board and roll it out. They are approachable, they are supporting us, which is user needs are driving it. So we are leading the direction for what should be done with the software, which leaves exactly what was said in the last presentation, the room for innovation. We can change, we can add what we want. And I can tell you guys, after this many years in the games industry, there is nothing more important than having the flexibility for innovation. You do not want your ideas or your developments restricted by the limitations of software in corporate environments that's not going to advance as quick as you can. And we have many, many examples of this. We have the Irish games industry is being led, and we have the lovely union of IMERC at the moment, which is the Irish Game Makers Association. They're all working together to develop and push games further. But we have open source as a proven technology. It's a proven, tried, tested method. Unity, open source game development tool, faced massive problems in its initial startup, mostly because the big studios were embarrassed to use it. They would sit down and say, oh, isn't that for mobile games? Isn't that just for small web games? And it's not. It has graphics, it's physics, as much and as reputable as anything else, like CryGen or any of the rest of them. It might not have the high-end rendering, but as a game engine for the average indie developer or middle-of-the-range developer, it is just as good a tool. But people are still embarrassed by it. Play Unity in their last development, they had to offer it in the industry, but on the professional edition, what you're paying for in a professional license is that it will hide at the beginning, powered by Unity, that it won't tell people you made the game in Unity, because people are still embarrassed by it. Lumberyard, Amazon's latest game engine got released there last week. Another open source web development, AAA games platform. It's actually powered by the CryGen engine. And now with Unity adding to this, with Blender adding to this, we have more open source platforms that are available to us. The fact of the matter is, we say it's a $60 billion industry. Do we want to be throwing that $60 billion away on licenses we don't need for software that is as good as the open source stuff that's out there? And Blender is at the forefront of this. This is what we should be thinking. So what does that mean for us? In general, sounds ridiculous, sounds like a crazy question. I've just rambled at you about the importance of Blender and modeling and the tools that are available and how important open source is. What I'm hoping is that it matters to you is a change of attitude, especially today. We've come together as a group of users, a Blender user group. What I am hoping today is that you will leave as evangelists. Okay? What has happened so many times before, and the reason Unity and Alt-Type took off, is it was in evangelical users that drove it. So many times does the comparison come up or discussion where people will say, why would I use Blender? And people go, well, look at it compared to Max and just do the comparison. We shouldn't be talking like that. We should be meeting together like this. We should just be showing what Blender can do and looking at it and going, that's amazing. I could use that in a game environment. I could use that for my business. Why wouldn't I do that? We should be working on the community side of things. Animation jams, art jams, Blender game meetups, where people do a game jam just through Blender modeling and the Blender game engine, driving the community side of things, which is us. For those of us that have been using Blender for a very long time, I'm probably going to break your heart here and say, guys, we're getting to that stage where we're mostly out of date. We're too old, we're the has-beens, we're not the future. But we have the chance to be the evangelists and motivate the students and those that are out there that will be the future. And they are the ones that will take this software to the next iteration and make it a standard norm in the games institution. And that's what I would like, more than anything, to do today, is that we consider this multi-billion-dollar industry and we look at using our funds and our abilities wiser and in a more appropriate fashion. And we walk out of here today not as users, but as evangelists or potential evangelists. And that's it. Thank you for your time. Hope it was good for you.